Okay, so if you guys were tuning in yesterday, we watched this for many hours, but today we're going to, we actually watched like the end and now we're kind of getting towards the start. We're going to watch the sections Getting Hired at Blizzard, Lowest Point in Jeff's Life, One of Us, and then Early Blizzard Culture. I haven't seen any of that yet, and they all sound interesting. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Speaking of which, you have to tell the epic origin story of how you got the job at Blizzard.
Apparently it's a good story.
You were this legendary gamer and now legendary troll on EverQuest, username to go. You gave a lot of edgy feedback to the devs, telling them in now famous, there's several rants. There's a famous one where you tell many of them to do a bunch of things, including to pull their heads out of their asses. You were loved and respected because you gave a lot of specific ways that the game could be.
Wait, I missed this part. So this is an old school Jeff like forum post before he started working at Blizzard. Fix your GD buggy BS half butt encounters. The amount of time we dedicated to get our keys to see this guy die and take a turn at the Emperor is just sick. Oh my gosh. Wow. That's wild. So yeah, he was a gamer then. I mean, this is very familiar language. He was definitely a gamer.
Improved. And that's an important thing to say. You weren't just talking shit. You actually really loved and cared for the game, and you gave them, in the language of the time, advice on how to improve their game. And it's funny because like you look back to those messages, it's inspiring to me. It should be informative and inspiring to a lot of people because you're really legit full-time talking shit. And now, and it always have been, like one of the kindest, most loved human beings in the entire gaming industry. Anyway, how did that lead to you getting a job at Blizzard?
So when the first guild leader left Legacy of Steel, the founder, he was a guy named, his online name was Dread. That was his name. He left. And our guild was kind of in this listless spin for a while. And
wait, what was the name of the guild? Was it Legacy Steel?
Online name was Dread. That was Legacy of Steel, the founder. He was a guy named...
Legacy of Steel.
Online name was Dread. That was his name. He left. And our guild was kind of in this listless spin for a while. And eventually somebody stepped up and took his position as guild leader, and that person's name was Ariel, who was this blonde wood elf warrior female who always refused to wear a helmet because thought their character was so pretty, wanted to show their face all the time. So Ariel was a great guild leader for us and made me like a assistant guild leader, raid leader, officer type in the guild. And over time, Ariel got busier and busier and, you know, would send me messages like, hey, I'm not going to be online, you know, tomorrow, or I'm not going to be online tonight. Can you run the raid? Can you run the raid? And running the raids was very natural for me. And it was my first experience with leadership in my life of like, how do you motivate people? Like, what does motivation look like? What does discipline look like? How do you inspire people? When do you force people versus encourage them? You know, so it was a learning experience for me on the fly. And I had the safety net of the real guild leader would log in eventually.
I should mention, I'm just now reading about, doing a bunch of research on Justinian of the Roman Empire, and he rose from being a peasant to being emperor. So I see a lot of parallels in your life journey from peasant to emperor. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
At least EverQuest guild leader. That's as much
Uber
as I can
guild.
say. Uber guild leader. Best
Nice.
guild on the
Nice.
nameless server. So as time went on, Ariel became busier and busier. And then one day they contacted me and we were having this like whisper back and forth, and they said, you're going to have to take over the guild. I'm just too busy. And then it came out later. Well, let me back up a second. I started fooling around, like around this time, Half-Life 1 had come out. And with both Duke Nukem and Half-Life 1, one of the incredible things that those companies did back in the day was when they shipped the game, they shipped the editor on the CD. Mm-hmm. And if you were curious enough, you could like fire up that editor and fool around with it. So I made a Duke Nukem level, and you'd send it off to like those UK programming magazines, and you get excited because your level was in some random magazine. And then I started making like Half-Life levels, and Ariel had stepped down as guild leader. I had become guild leader. Mm-hmm. And then at one point, Ariel contacts me and says, hey, you were talking about those Half-Life levels you made. I want to see those. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, I didn't know you played Half-Life. Like, yeah, maybe we can get a server up and I can play them. And Ariel tells me, no, mail them to this address in Irvine. And because, again, to rewind in the time machine for a second, to send something like a Half-Life level over the internet would have taken like 12 hours. Mm-hmm. So you actually like burned it onto a CD and stuck it in the mail. Mm-hmm. So I put my Half-Life levels, I send them to Ariel, and he says, my name's Rob. I'm a designer at Blizzard Entertainment.
Oh, what?
I hear you're in Pasadena because you mention it. I would write about, the Rose Parade and all these things on our website. It was blogging before blogging existed. So he knew I lived in Pasadena. He's like, Irvine's only an hour away. Why don't you come down, see Blizzard, and you can also meet, and he names like 4 people in the guild. And I'm like, they all work at Blizzard too? He's like, yeah, we're all Blizzard. And it was so weird because
that's kind of nuts.
During that era, I didn't have a lot of money. It was not like, kind of nowadays, it feels like everybody plays every game, but you had to be selective. So like, I never bought StarCraft or Diablo or Warcraft. I was much more of the Half-Life, Quake 3 guy around that time. And I never played a Blizzard game, and I just got invited to like go to Blizzard Entertainment.
Was Blizzard already legendary? With the Warcraft and StarCraft, was it building this like great legend of this game company that seemingly doesn't miss?
It was very much on its way to enshrining itself as being one of the legendary game. Like, it was beloved by gamers, but there were still ignorant people like me who hadn't played, War II or Diablo.
So funny enough, most people that I know that work at Blizzard or used to work at Blizzard have kind of a similar story to Jeff, where they're playing WoW, they play too much WoW, they're a gamer's gamer, like as gamer as it gets, and then someone that plays with them kind of scouts them through the game and is like, you have a lot of good feedback, we've seen your forum posts, like, would you maybe want to help work on WoW, right? Like, stories like that. Nearly every person I know at Blizzard has a story like that. It's interesting that they hire kind of like from the game, from the gamers of the game, and then slowly they kind of get trickled in, whether sometimes, usually I guess through like QA first, and then they can go to like game design or something from there. I think I'm good saying all of that. I think that looks good. This doesn't happen in this day and age. Oh yeah, no, it still does. It still does. That never happened. Absolutely. I can verify. I don't want to say names, but yes, that happens. That's how it happens. Anyway, I've mentioned this a couple times on stream, and when people, gamers, when WoW players talk crap about Blizzard, one of the things that I kind of smile about and chuckle about in my own head is Blizzard hires gamers from WoW. WoW gamers, the community generally is making up a lot of Blizzard now. So when WoW gamers say Blizzard sucks or Blizzard doesn't know what they're doing, it's you guys. it's us. We can like we are Blizzard now in a sense. And so I find it like funny and ironic since I know a lot of the people there that have like that's who it is, by the way, when you're talking crap and you guys are saying no, and I'm like, oh well, it's verifiably true from my end, so you can believe it or not. But it's funny. It's funny from my perspective. I'm just like, nice guys, nice. Checks out. Yeah. Anyway, that's the full circle funny moment, I think. But more stories like this than you would expect. Nearly everyone I know has a story like that. It's very nuts.
Diablo 2 or StarCraft, which was shocking to people.
So you weren't like freaking out.
No, I was freaking out in a different sense. I'm like, am I going to get mugged when
Right.
I like who are
Am I
is
gonna
this
get
a
mugged?
scam?
Oh,
Because you
geez.
didn't meet people off the internet.
Yeah.
So I drove down there. I ended up there was Rob Pardo, who at that time was the.
I will say this because some people in the chat have this point. I will say this. The people that were just like Jeff in this interview as VP, the people at Blizzard that are trying to make the best game oftentimes are dealing with the bureaucracy of a big company, and they're trying to do their best, but they can't. So yes, that part's true too, obviously, right? Like, I don't think that even needs to be said, but I'll say it anyway. Yes, that's true, right? Like, yeah, it's all of us, like WoW players that are working there, but obviously there's powers that be that like can't, that's trickier. So anyway, I hope that part doesn't need to be said, but I'll say it anyway.
lead designer on Warcraft 3, and he was Ariel.
Oh, hey, look, D Machine is in the chat with a tier 1 sub. Hey, D Machine knows exactly what I'm talking about to the darn T. Oh, there it is. Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely. D Machine, hope you've been well, my friend. That's what's up. D Machine, that's hilarious. Good timing there. Thanks for preaching, brother. Yeah. I mean, so D Machine knows exactly what I'm talking about, and all the people is that, you can agree or disagree, but I'm just telling you what it is. You know what I mean? So anyway.
So okay, it wasn't a woman after all. It wasn't this blonde wood elf. I don't know what you expect at that point. It was Rob Pardo. To this day, a great friend of mine named Scott Mercer was the enchanter in our EverQuest guild, a guy named Dale O'Min. There was a guy named Roman Kenny who was like this totally psychotic wizard who played in our guild. And I had lunch with these guys. We just went out to Irvine to like a restaurant. And, forgive me for the misuse of the phrase, but it was like my coming out moment. And we talked about games having that stigma and being embarrassed about who you are and what you like. Like up until that point, I would never tell friends, family, like, I love games. I'm playing this game, EverQuest. It's so cool. We just killed a dragon. And so you were hiding this part of your identity.
It's true, yeah.
And I'm out to lunch with these guys in Irvine, and we're talking about dragons and swords and, raid tactics and talking shit on all the people in the guild. And I literally had this moment where I felt like myself for the first time. I just felt like so comfortable. And that was an eye-opening moment. And
I feel like for a lot of us, like, we can relate to this, right? Like in middle school, grade school, maybe you didn't want to tell all your friends you played WoW or that girl you liked or whatever. I think I was maybe a little different. Like, people at my school knew me as WoW Kid. I'm not even trolling. And like, everyone kind of knew I played. I didn't really like hide it that much. But what I will say is this: from the exterior, there was a big cultural shift in 2019-ish when Fortnite blew up, Ninja did collabs with celebrities, gaming became on the map is cool, and Classic WoW relaunched and went mainstream. When all of that happened in 2019, there was a massive shift of, oh, I'm a gamer. Do you guys remember that? Like, it was It's very different now than it was in like 2015 or 2014. It was way different, like in college, high school, and then like backing up to like middle school. It was like, you didn't just like, I play games. It was very different. I mean, maybe I did say that, but a lot of people.
And after that lunch happened, he invited me for a couple more lunches down, you know, I just thought as like, oh, now I made friends with these people online. Now we know each other in real life, and they happen to work for this game company. And another one of the lunches, they invite this troll warrior to have lunch with us, whose name in the game was Barfa, the troll warrior. Mm-hmm. And Barfa wasn't somebody who played with us all the time, but kind of like Ariel got into the guild kind of on the side. You know, it was one of those like inside invites of like, who's Barfa? I don't know, but Barfa's in the guild now. And there was, at the time, it was a new dungeon called The Hole, and we had never done it before. And we jumped down in this hole, and we're doing this whole dungeon, and everything goes wrong, as it's prone to do in EverQuest. And the whole guild escapes, except for Barfa, whose troll character's so big he can't jump out of the exit. Mm-hmm. And I had this potion that was like a really expensive potion that was a teleport potion that, you know, no one but someone in the Uber guild could afford at the time. And I hand the potion to Barfa and I say, here, use this. It'll teleport you out. And I'm a rogue. I can just stealth and get out of the dungeon on my own. So I saved Barfa, not really knowing who Barfa was. And I did it with a very expensive potion. Having lunch, Rob introduced me. This is Alan Adham. He plays Barfa.
No!
I'm like, oh, Barfa. And we, you know, he has, you saved me in the hole that time. Well, it turns out Alan was the founder of Blizzard.
Oh,
and he was the head. He was sort of the head of everything at that time. It was Alan, Mike Morheim.
Oh my gosh,
and Frank
that's
Pierce.
Wild.
And what I didn't realize with these lunches were, like, I just loved them because I felt like I was myself. I felt true happiness being surrounded by these, you know, people who were talking about video games, and I felt comfortable around. And one day, Rob logs into EverQuest. He wasn't playing much at the time. He said, I want you to tomorrow to check the Blizzard job site. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, like, I'll check the Blizzard job site. And they had announced World of Warcraft, and posted on the job site was the job for an associate quest designer. And the funniest part of it was, I forget if it was a requirement or a plus in the job description, but they're like, we really want somebody with a creative writing degree. And I'm like, you guys set this up for me. Like, they were just looking, and it was that hindsight moment of like, actually these guys were just interviewing me for 6 months. They were actually friends, and they were really cool about it too.
That's rad, man.
And I just had the fuck it moment, like that job opened up. I applied with all my heart, you know, like they had a bunch of quest writing on it. And then I went through like a pretty hardcore 6-month recruiting process because they never hired designers from out of the company. Traditionally, designers were promoted from within Blizzard. Either they would like transfer out of other disciplines, or they would come from quality assurance,
QA,
tech support. So hiring somebody off the street was kind of a big deal for them. And they really put me through a grilling. It was the first time I met Chris Metzen, who is maybe the most inspirational, creative person on the planet. And you instantly, they paired me, they did this interview pairing. There were these two guys. It was Kevin Jordan, who was one of the original designers on WoW. Really, he doesn't get enough credit for his contributions. He was one of the earliest class designers, PvP designers. But he's a really quiet guy. And they paired him with Chris, and Chris just owns the room. You know, Chris, you could just sit and listen to him
Chris carries, man.
He's so creative. He's so passionate. And the way he articulates things, like, you just instantly become a fan of Chris when you're around Chris. And Chris, Kevin, and I go to lunch at this Italian place that was across the street from Blizzard. And I remember Chris made a stop to buy cigarettes, on the way to the interview.
Mm-hmm.
And then every other word out of Chris's mouth was like, fuck and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I had come from this whole like corporate culture from my dad's recruiting business, where I'd never imagined somebody would curse in an interview or stop to buy smokes. And again, it was like, I'm around my people. Like, I never smoked, but just, being around
Gamers,
people
yeah.
who didn't care about what the corporate norms were was so inspiring.
And I think we're going to get into like early Blizzard culture soon. I guess in like 10 minutes, where he'll expand more on this, which I'm really curious about. It's like such a interesting time,
And then my last interview was with Alan and Rob and a great programmer named Bob Fitch. Like, I think he's one of the first 5 developers at Blizzard. And they took me to an Arco station that had a Jack in the Box. You know how like sometimes they'll combo? It was like Arco Jack in the Box. And that was my final interview at Blizzard, was at the Arco Jack in the Box. And I remember thinking to myself, these guys just brought me to a Jack in the Box that's in an Arco station. I need to work here. Like, these are my people. This is where I belong. Like, it was the greatest thing ever. And so, yeah, that's
a cool story,
crazy
man.
journey to
That's
Blizzard.
A cool story.
Started at the bottom.
I think, like, man, there's so many stories like this that seem like they would never happen, but I feel like you hear about them a lot, like way more than you would think. And it's like kind of like leaning into serendipity and just being like, okay, anything could happen at any moment. Let me be as networked and open and kind of like looking around, ears open, eyes open kind of a thing always, because you never know. And then stuff like this happens, Crazy story.
And end up at the top in the Jack in the Box. Can you speak to, because you mentioned some of the low points in depression. Through that journey, how did you find your way out? So can you just... A lot of people are sitting in those low points right now listening to this. What kind of wisdom can you draw about finding your way out, finding your people?
There were a lot of really low points. I'll give you the weirdest one. I started drinking a lot, and alcohol was something that I really wrestled with until my early 30s. And one of the things I'm most proud of today is sobriety and having been sober for such a long time now. And I remember I would like buy a bottle of Old Granddad and like drink the whole thing by myself and then watch the Oscars. And I remember of all things, I'm watching the Oscars, which is just such a fake bullshit environment.
Yeah.
But I was like, I was really drunk, and all those people seem so together and successful and polished. And it was that contrast that made me feel like such a failure. And it all seems so stupid and unimportant to me now. I became, I got in that constant struggle of try not to drink, but drink to make it feel better. I was lucky. My parents were very supportive of me, even in my 20s, even after I, quote unquote, left the house. I went into therapy, and that was very helpful, extremely helpful. And one thing I learned is that you have to find the right therapist for you. It's not just checking a checkbox of I went to therapy. It's about finding somebody who sort of helps you get out of whatever rut you're in a way that's healthy for you. And I tried antidepressants, but I just hated taking pills. and feeling like something was in me and making me feel different, I never responded to it. And then the hardest thing, which I've never mentioned to anyone and is hard for me to talk about, but eventually I went through ECT, which is electroconvulsive therapy, shock therapy. And that broke me out. And I would never endorse that as a miracle. I was at such a low point that people were very worried about me and my well-being and what was going to happen. And that was sort of an extreme pull the ripcord, like there's nothing else to lose moment. And I think that was the difference maker. That and starting at Blizzard.
So fine. I mean, there's a deep loneliness there. Before you met those guys at lunch, you're alone, like in a really deep, fundamental way, like in the way you weren't in New York with the writers group, right? And so that must have been an incredible experience, just to see the guild. Yes,
it was everything I need. As such an introvert, you think that there are extroverts and introverts don't need anybody. But weirdly, I think introverts almost need people more, and we don't always know how to engage in the right, healthy ways and how to find.
That's pretty well said. That's very well said. I think I've experienced that myself as an introvert. It's like, I don't like being around people, but I kind of need it probably, but I don't want to even admit that. It feels good to talk to someone, but I don't really want to ever. It's pretty well said.
In people and how to connect with people. And it was great. The thing that had attracted me to creative writing was the solitude of it, and the fact that you didn't have to collaborate and you could just write what you wanted to write, and it was all you. You would succeed on your own or you would fail on your own, and that was very attractive to me. And the thought of creative collaboration was actually off-putting. I'd spent all 4 years of undergrad interning at Universal Pictures because I thought I wanted to be in film. And it was such an unhealthy creative collaboration in the film industry. It's a very, I look up.
10 gifted subs. Thank you very much, guys. Welcome in. Enjoy your lack of ads.
Unhealthily to the film industry and admire it, and, grew up with all these legends who had come from there. But it's like a caste system. And I was on the bottom of the caste system as an intern, and I was seeing how the other people who were low caste in the film industry were treated, and it was just horrible, But games was different. Games was very flat. It didn't matter if you were the CEO or the boss, like the way Mike and Alan carried themselves with, me who was an associate game designer, you felt like an equal. And I think it, not just the camaraderie, but the part that shouldn't be overlooked is the work itself and the work ethic. That's what really pulled me out.
Hard work on a thing you love.
That's right. Yeah.
I have to, if you may allow me, read the prophetic one of us post you made on April 18th, 2002. Because in some deep sense, you, I think, remained one of us. I apologize to bring up Justinian the Emperor, but you remained a kind of peasant. Gamer, a true gamer who happens to also be designing the games. And so this post kind of speaks to that. It's fascinating to read because that was at the very beginning, right? You didn't know anything. You didn't know the games you would end up creating. Title of the post, if you want something done right. You wrote, "This week I accepted a position as associate game designer with Blizzard Entertainment. Specifically, I will be designing quests for World of Warcraft, Blizzard's MMORPG based on the popular Warcraft series. In addition to my duties as quest designer, I will also be expected to contribute to helping design the endgame content for World of Warcraft. The reason I'm sharing this information, besides the fact that I have a masochistic love of reading rants and flames about myself, is because I know that the fans of this site are hardcore MMORPG players. The readers of the site have also come to know my personal opinions on what constitutes a fun gaming experience versus what feels like a complete waste of time or poorly designed encounter.
And then he designs the Green Hills of Stranglethorn quest. Oh, nice. Hey, Nappy, thanks for the sub.
Wow, you're very eloquent in this post and without too much shit talking. You've all read my opinions on such things as tedious key camps, obvious time sinks devoid of any story or linear narrative, quests which reward the lucky over the skilled, and quest rewards which are out of sync with the amount of time and effort required to complete them. I hope that my association with World of Warcraft will serve to comfort MMORPG fans that one of us is on the other side of the fence, looking out for the interest of the player. And you go on to describe some of the high hopes you have for World of Warcraft, which is really fun to read because you don't realize it's gonna be like one of the greatest games of all time, played by millions of human beings.
So cool.
Where those millions of human beings are playing for hundreds of hours, thousands of hours. It's crazy. It's funny that this one of us is writing at the dawn of a new age. The final paragraph is, so with all that is going on with me, you'll have to excuse any lapse in updates to the site here. I will try my hardest to give you slack or something to read while you should be working. But in the meantime, there's a whole world of NPCs that need to learn the words Kak Sagur and Mo Fakar in quotes and the like, although something tells me I'm already in trouble with the boss.
Wow.
One of us, Jeff.
Wow.
One of us. That was a beautiful
Jeez.
post. Did you, in fact, get in trouble with the boss?
No. My boss was Alan, and Alan was very understanding, and they kind of knew what they were getting into when they hired me. And that post actually embarrasses me when I hear it now. There's so much ego in it, and I think it's
funny.
It's got that 20-year-old, I don't know what I don't know.
I know exactly how to fix this video game and all video games, and but there's brilliance behind that. There's a passion behind that. Like when you're a gamer and you really put in the hours in a game like EverQuest, you understand what makes for a compelling experience. You don't at that time understand how much hard work is required to create that experience, and how much uncertainty there is, how difficult it is, how many trade-offs there are, how your designs, when they actually are brought to the world and are experienced by thousands of people, millions of people, they are different from the vision you had for it.
Man, after reading that and then going back to the depression bit, he said he did ECT, but also started working on something that he felt like he was a part of, he felt like he made a difference in, and was very passionate about. It reminds me of Tolstoy's A Confession, which is a really short, phenomenal read that talks about depression in a sense of finding something that you're passionate about and helping other people through that work is something that just completely changes everything. At least it did for Tolstoy, and it sounds like that was kind of the case for Jeff as well. It's like, finally I'm working on something where it feels like I make a difference. I go and work on something that people can see the other end and they can see the product, and my existence is valuable. I am here for a reason. And if you have that, it's like, wow, that feels good to wake up in the morning and do something, right? And I think if you're missing that, then like maybe that can be valuable, right? But if you're doing that, it's like, man, this feels incredible. So I don't know. It seems like they kind of aligned in that same time frame. Can't really say which one it is, really. I'm not an expert, but there's probably something to that, right?
So all those elements you don't know. But you have to have that ego in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
To even have the guts to try, to have the guts to put in all that work. So what was it like? What were the vibes of early Blizzard like? They've, at this point, Warcraft 1 and 2, Warcraft 3 is in production, StarCraft. These are legendary games. I spent probably over 1,000 hours in these games combined. I played Warcraft 1, 2, 3. I played StarCraft 1 and 2. I played WoW, of course, Diablo 1, 2, 3, 4. WoW. But Diablo 2 with Stay a While and Listen with Deckard Cain.
Stay a while and listen.
I mean, some of these characters, some of these experiences just will stay with me forever. Anyway, so big thank you to those early Blizzard folks. What was it like? What was the team like? What were the developers like? What was the vibes like?
So this is early Blizzard culture now, trying to get a feeling of what it's like in 2004, even before this. I'm really excited for this section.
Like in those early days.
It was amazing. It was the dream. When I showed up at Blizzard on my first day, the office was on the University of California, Irvine campus at the time. They have this research and development park where if you're like a tech company, you can get office space there. And Blizzard took up, when I joined, it was 3/4 of the building was Blizzard. And there's like a building right next to it that had like Cisco and, it was like all kind of techie places. And it was so funny because you drive up and like everything was very serious and corporate. And then outside of the Blizzard offices, everybody's wearing black t-shirt and shorts and throwing frisbees and playing hacky sack and on scooters and skateboards. And you're like, okay, that's where Blizzard is. So it was that environment. Nice. I remember walking in the door and thinking like it feels like I'm walking into a dorm room because it was just posters on the wall, and there were actually like people would have futons because they'd be sleeping because we would work so much back then. But the vibe was very small. Like Blizzard, the day I joined in May of 2002, was fewer than 200 people. And that included, there was a whole group up in San Mateo called Blizzard North.
I didn't know that.
So Blizzard South, the Irvine group, was responsible for StarCraft and Warcraft. And there were two development teams at Blizzard. It was called Team 1 and Team 2 at Blizzard South. Team 1 was revered. These are the RTS guys. They made, StarCraft, Warcraft 2, and they were, at that time, they're working on Warcraft 3. Mm-hmm. Team 2 was kind of the redheaded stepchild. Like, apparently before I joined, they had tried to spin off a second team multiple times and failed. And then they finally decided they were going to make World of Warcraft. There was a game called Nomad. I don't know what that game was exactly, but that was what Team 2 was working on at first. That got scrapped, and Alan steered the team towards World of Warcraft. And there's an amazing designer named Eric Dodds.
I love hearing these stories because, like, from the outside, you think of Blizzard with these early launches, Warcraft 3, World of Warcraft. It's like, oh man, these guys got everything right. And then you hear these internal struggles of like all of these small instabilities of like, oh, we tried to spin up Team 2 and it completely failed. We try again. We've seen later in the video when he talks about like, Overwatch in 6 weeks and Titan failing, all these failures. But from the outside, it's like, oh, Blizzard polish, like especially early Blizzard with like WoW and TBC, like wow. It reminds me of Nassim Taleb's book Anti-Fragile, where he talks about small instabilities day to day actually create a really robust macro environment, but in the day-to-day, it doesn't feel that way, but that's actually healthy and good. And when you try to remove the small instabilities is when bad stuff happens in the macro. Anyway, great read by Nassim Taleb. Would highly recommend. But it kind of reminds me of that in the early Blizzard culture.
Go on later in his career to be the game director of Hearthstone. him and Ben Brode basically were the core designers behind that. But Eric and Kevin Jordan were these two key designers working on World of Warcraft for Team 2. And then you had this tech group that was headed up by John Cash. Mm-hmm. And John Cash, the first day that I showed up to work on Team 2, they said, you have to go get your login from John Cash. I'm like, John Cash from id. Mm-hmm. And you know, John Cash has a skin. You could be John Cash in Quake 3. So, and then he saw me, and he was a huge EverQuest player. And he was like, you're the guy who runs Legacy of Steel. I'm like, you're John Cash. And we had that moment where we kind of fanboyed out on each other. And it was just, the vibe was so cool there. Like, there were very few producers. So a game team, there are 5 core disciplines that make a video game. You've got...
I'm just going to pause real quick. I don't think anyone has the answer to this question in the chat, but I'm going to ask anyway, because I feel like I keep meaning to ask this. Legacy of Steel was the website and presumably guild and his EverQuest guild, I'm assuming. So Chris Kaliki founded Notorious Studios, and their game was Legacy, Steel, and Sorcery. Is there a connection there? Is it, because I think Chris also played EverQuest. I'm gonna have to ask Chris this. I don't know if Chris was in this EverQuest guild and then named his game after Legacy of Steel, Legacy, Steel, and Sorcery. Hey, I just said that. Really? Oh yeah, you did just say that, Jesse. You know, I'm gonna message. Well, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll message him another time, but yeah, I'm kind of curious if there's a connection there.
Engineers or programmers who are writing the code. You've got the art team that's making all the visuals for the game, and that spans everything from like 3D modeling, characters, environments, to also animation, tech art, you know, making it all work. You've got game design, which some companies don't have design. The artists and the engineers do it. Valve famously has very few designers because everybody there is a designer. But in companies where design is a discipline, which it very much is so at Blizzard, game designers are sort of the creating the game experience people, you know, setting up all the systems and content in a way that gets the player to navigate through the game.
So that's part of his story, part of this quest design, part of it is like how you move through the game world.
Yes. So game designers, there's a spectrum, like same with art, same with engineering, of roles within game design. Some are more heavy on the systems side. So like any game that you've played where loot drops, you know, Diablo 4, World of Warcraft, you know, Escape from Tarkov, whatever. If there's loot dropping, a designer has planned out very carefully what drops where and at what percentages. That would be like a systems designer. A content designer is somebody who's going to make quests or write storylines, or there might even be a narrative designer, which is even more focused on story. But designers, you know, run the gambit, and then you've got these jack of all trade designers that can do it all. So that's the design group. There's production, which is project management. And production is different at every game company you go to. So if you talk to someone from EA or Blizzard, production might be very different. They might be the boss. They might actually be a designer, or they might be more of a project manager. And then one of my favorite disciplines on a game team that's often overlooked is sound and, you know, audio, which is comprised of the sound designers and composers. And there are two things, I think there are two things that no one realizes how much they bring to a game until they're missing. And that's audio and lighting.
Bro, we talked about this yesterday, but audio makes games feel so good. Like New World chopping down the tree. Oh my gosh. so good. Or like Arcane Mage and WoW with all the sounds, amazing. And I've got to say on the other end where it's not so good, like old school Frost Mage Icelands, slamming that Icelands key, it just so much dopamine straight to the ear every time. That doesn't make any sense, but it kind of does. Whereas the new Icelands today just kind of falls flat, and it makes the spec feel like you're not doing anything just from the noise. Man, it's such a big deal, right?
Because most of the time we're playing without these things, and it just feels a little off and wrong. And when you have a great lighting artist, or you have a great composer or sound designer, like the experience, you're just tapping into these senses that you wouldn't otherwise.
Oh, bro, headshots. Yeah, like hit marker, the hit marker sound in Call of Duty. Are you kidding me? Bro, killing blows in New World. Dink, dink. Bro, if you know what I'm talking about, you know. Oh my gosh, kidney shot. Like, oh yeah, there's some sounds that it's like, I just want this. The hit marker, the dink, the headshots, like, bro, it sounds so, you wanted it, you just want to hear it again, you know? It's nice. And then the other end of the spectrum is true. If you don't have that nice noise, you just don't care. It's like you just don't care to do it again.
But that's who comprises the game team.
As the lighting, you know, all the different kinds of graphics, would that be under the art team?
Yeah, lighting, you're going to have lighting under the art team, but they're going to be best friends with a graphics programmer.
Okay.
And, you know, like I mentioned with design, there's this wide spectrum. On the engineering team, you have some guys who are like architectural geniuses who are coming up with, you know, the server client model or the networking or whatever. Others are more like gameplay focused. On Overwatch, we had an audio programmer just doing nothing but audio hooks for the audio team. And on every game team, you're going to have graphics programmers who will work with people like the lighting artists or the environmental artists, character artists on shaders, and basically any way to make the game. They'll always ask, what's your vision? What are you trying to get it to look like? They'll want an illustration of what should the world look like. And they'll be the ones who say, I know how to write code that will let you do that. So you partner a great graphics programmer with a great lighting artist. And that's actually the creative tension behind games. And what makes game teams so unique is if we were to line them up on some crazy spectrum, on one end, you're going to have the artists who they're creative, dare I say, emotional, you know, they are artistes on that end. And on the other end, you have the most logical, brilliant programmers who their minds just work very differently from the most creative art. Like artists could be sitting, you have a meeting with them and they'll just sit illustrating. If there's any piece of paper, they're drawing on it. And programmers, you know, they're just so brilliant and organized in their thinking, and everything's so logical. And then in the middle are people like the sound designers, the game designers, and the producers. They're kind of a little bit in all those fields, but it's the brilliance of taking people who are so vastly different in their interests and talents, but aiming them at that shared goal or that shared vision of the game that like really makes something special.
And there, I mean, you showed me the size of the team for World of Warcraft, but you've also are well known for working on quite small teams to create these incredibly huge games. What is the power of a small team in this kind of context where there's that creative tension?
That's a good question.
Is it because a small team avoids maybe the compartmentalization, like the modular, where the artists now have their own wing building where they never talk to the engineers, that kind of thing?
Absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. The bigger the team, the more you become a cog in the machine.
Right.
And on a small team, the way I like to describe it is you get to have a loud voice. If we're a small team, let's say we're going to make a game and it's at sort of the incubation period of a game, and there's only 10 of us, all 10 of us are in the room for every decision. You know, I'm not a server networking guy, but I'm in the room for that discussion. I'm not an illustrator, but I'm going to sit in the room when we decide what the art style looks like. As soon as the team starts to grow, we become compartmentalized. It's exactly like you said. And there's a weird thing that happens. This is just kind of a human nature thing. The less you interact with somebody, the more you sort of become alienated from them and vilify their point of view. You tend to look at what they do and say with skepticism rather than trust and belief in them. And I find on smaller teams where we all know each other's names, I know what everybody's working on every day. They know what I'm working on. Everybody can.
I can't remember where I was reading about this. Maybe someone can remind me. I was reading about Gore, the company that does like Gore-Tex, and what they do to kind of like escape this is they keep teams very small in each of their own little like headquarters, and once they grow out of that, they just create like a second whole like what's it called, like a not a headquarters, but a second just like building where they just like start again. And once there's like more than like 100 or 200 people, they just then do it again, so that each team kind of like knows everyone's names. It doesn't become this like massive workplace like division. Yeah, exactly. Instead of just having like thousands of people that just like don't know each other, they try to keep it in that like 100 to 200 range. I can't remember what book this was in. Probably one of Nazim Taleb's book. Maylin, thanks for the 2 gifted. Anyway, they kind of keep it small and tight knit because of that. And there's like that key number where it works. And then once you pass that, it's like everyone's just kind of a stranger and you don't really know what's going on. I don't know if Blizzard could necessarily benefit from a structure like that, but I found it really interesting when I was reading about it.
Talk to each other. There's none of that stereotyping of a discipline. On big unhealthy teams, you start to say things like, well, the artists just don't get it. They don't understand what we're trying to make. And when you back up and you think about the statement that you just said, it's like such an asshole statement. Like, really,
I think even larger than this, like, people in general do better when they're connected and they talk and they're not making assumptions for the other person. Like if there's like a family feud or a disagreement between friends, usually the cure to that is bringing people together and talking about it, right? If there's any drama between streamers or in the, YouTube space, whatever, like if you come together and talk about it, you can usually come to a common ground very quickly. But if you don't, and you just think, oh, this person's so dumb, they don't get it, and the other person's thinking the same about you, then it just gets further and further apart, right?
Artists don't get it? Like that's not true. B, that's sort of demeaning to them. Like they signed up for this is their life's work too. This game is going to be as much theirs as it is mine. So who am I to say a statement like that?
It's harmful to a discipline to think that you understand the world, no silly other folks don't, and you have nothing to learn from them really, and they're deluded in some kind of way. That's so powerful.
Fast forwarding a little bit, when we formed Team 4, and which went on to make Titan and ultimately fail, and then that got rebooted as the Overwatch team. The idea that I tried to get through to the team was to make an assumption. And really, like, Blizzard is one of the top game developers in the world. And
communicational inclusion and mutual understanding. So yeah, the chat is still talking about like just that trust. Trust is key among teams, that trust. I was reading some like Seneca's letters, and one of the things that Seneca said was like, be very, very careful about who you're friends with and who you let in. So like in this case, like who you're surrounded by and who you're working with and stuff like that. But once you do, then you let go and you trust them. Right. Once you do, that's when it's like, OK, look, I've already vetted you as a friend, or I already vetted you as a colleague, or I already vetted you on the team. I don't know if I necessarily understand or agree with you, but like, we'll have some trust there. I always kind of draw inferences back to like WoW Arena, because that's like what I've done. And like some of my best WoW Arena teams I've ever had are with people who I trust. I know my healer is going to use that cooldown. I trust them. And, you know, every once in a while when he didn't, it's like, you know, mistakes happen, but I trust you. And that trust is what allowed us to be such a good team. Or I trust my other DPS player, you know, a lot. And that doesn't mean mistakes won't happen, but when I don't trust the other person and I'm trying to micromanage and that trust is broken is when the team kind of just sucks, you know?
We were very fortunate when I was there, and I imagine it's this way today, that we could recruit whatever talent we wanted. The best of the best wanted to come work at Blizzard. And if you sort of go through the paces of that and say, okay, when we recruit somebody, let's say we're recruiting an artist to make props, boxes, chairs, whatever. That is the best prop artist in the industry. That's who's going to show up on our doorstep. So when they show up here, we should treat them like the best prop artists in the industry instead of starting from a place of doubt and cynicism.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So when that person speaks up and says, I think, like with Overwatch, for example, I think we should do this, you know, we should do X instead of Y. Instead of saying, well, I'm a believer in Y, why are you against my idea X? You should take a moment, have a deep breath and say, man, the best prop artist in the industry is suggesting something. Why don't I listen to it?
Right. I actually do for myself like this kind of thought framework or thought experiment whenever I'm talking to a new person, especially if I feel in myself a little bit of tinge of that feeling. Usually it happens with like a really young person, like an undergraduate student or something like this. I pretend that they're the smartest person in the world in my head. And then now like it puts me in the mode of like assuming I have a lot to learn from them. And it helps. You actually like really listen. I literally think they're the smartest, wisest human on earth. It helps me.
I had that like I think you know, I'm no expert. I'm a game designer, so like as much psychology as I know is how to manipulate people into having fun, hopefully. Like I don't know. I don't have an important job, but
yeah, right.
Psychologically speaking, one thing I think a lot about is ego, and I think about insecurity. And insecurity we all have, like all of us as human beings have insecurity. It just manifests itself in different ways. And as we kind of go through our life journey, the insecurity also changes. So like some people, for example, use their insecurity to rip other people apart. Some people destroy themselves through their own insecurity. Some people destroy everybody with their insecurity. But I had that moment as a young lead when I first was made a lead on like World of Warcraft, where I felt it was very important to be right and to, you know, be shepherding the correct idea. And I actually got pulled aside. Like Pardo and I had a meeting with a couple people who weren't game designers. And it's always tricky as a game designer because constantly everybody's throwing ideas out on a game team. Like there's no shortage of ideas ever. And we were in some meeting about something and these people kind of threw out these ideas and I wasn't mean to them, but I very kind of systematically, like an insecure, you know, ego-driven new lead would do. I kind of, well, let me tell you why that's wrong and let me tell you what we're going to do instead. And after the meeting, Pardo pulled me aside and he said, "You're a very smart designer, but you shouldn't do what you just did to those people. You should always listen to what people have to say and try to make their ideas work." And I just, over and over, I was like, okay, anytime an idea comes my way, let's try to make it work. And it went from this kind of thing that I didn't believe into to actually like a core part of who I am today as a leader, as a game designer, as a game director. And some of the best ideas have come from developing other people's ideas, where your first reaction is like, no, that's wrong. And then just kind of sticking with it and going, but how could we make it work? And the most gratifying part when it succeeds is they get all the credit. And you've sort of elevated this person whose idea wouldn't have been championed, whose idea by the insecure, egotistical lead of, early 2000s would have just said no. Now their idea is the thing everybody in World of Warcraft or Overwatch is just loving.
I feel like that's one of the challenging parts about, like trusting others is it's like this process of letting go. So I've had a similar experience in my life when I started off streaming and doing YouTube. I was my own YouTube editor and I was the streamer, and I wanted everything my way. So I would only edit my own videos. I would do my own thumbnails. I would do all my own the background music, pick all my own songs. Like everything had to be perfect the way I wanted it. And then one day I was like, I can't keep doing this because I was in my mid-20s, but like I think at some point it's maybe when I met my wife or something, and I was like, I need like a little more time, right? Because making my own video every day would take a few hours, and I would stream 8 or 9 hours a day for like 7 days a week. So it was basically like fully capped out every day. And I was like, I need a little more time. So like, okay, let's hire a YouTube editor. And the process of that was I have to let go and not have it Josh's way, right? I have to let go and have them do it. I can direct them and maybe help them get it to kind of what I would like. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be how I want it to be. And that was really challenging for a while. But now, after many, many years of having, I've worked with a lot of different YouTube editors, but after working with Nikki and now Taylor as well on TikTok and YouTube, one of the things that I've learned is they do it better than I ever could. And that's what I'm hiring them for. They do it better than I ever could. And it's different than my perspective, and it's different than what I would put out. But that's what I'm hiring them for. So if you're Blizzard and you're working on, who is Josh? That's my name. Josh is Xaryu. I'm Xaryu. I'm Josh. Yeah, that's Josh. That's me. If you're hiring someone, it's like that trust of like, we hired you for a reason. If not, then like we could maybe get someone else in place. But like you hired them for a reason. That's that trust bit, right?
And they get all the credit.
I should give context to the listener who don't know about the great Jeffrey Kaplan. That you're one of the most humble and always give credit to the team for everything and anything. And so everything we talk about today, I know you're probably resisting constantly giving credit to the team on everything. So you're the famous, hi, I'm Jeff from the Overwatch team, right? So just as a small aside, thank you for your humility through your career, and thank you for always celebrating the team. But let's talk about WoW. Let's talk about World of Warcraft. Tell me.
No, it's over. All right, so we've watched now all of this. We haven't watched the entire thing, but we've gone full circle now. Wow, that was a good listen, man. Holy crap. I did not plan to listen to that whole thing. We did a weird We started at the end, then went to like the middle, then went to like the front for some reason. Because I didn't plan to watch the whole thing, and then it was so good that I couldn't stop watching. But now we pretty much watched the whole thing. There were some parts that we haven't seen, like AI in the future of games I didn't see, and like writing career I didn't see at the start. But we saw like all the sections that I really wanted to see. So, sheesh.